Hey, this is former WWE Superstar and ECW original, the Blue Meanie, and welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
The Blue Meanie, welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show. How are you today?
I am excellent. Thanks for having me. I know we've been talking leading up to this, and
Yeah,
I'm really excited to be on here.
and I'm honored to have you on here too to celebrate your career. You are, of course, the Blue Meanie, but can you tell me about your life growing up in Atlantic City and what you aspired to be when you were a kid?
Well, yeah, my life's been a little bit of a journey. I was I was born May 18th, 1972 at 2 p.m. Uh, and
Correct.
Yeah, I remember that because my mom would always tell me about that. And
Yeah.
then they ordered Chinese for lunch.
Oh,
And then,
nice.
yeah. So, but, lived in South Philly. And then my family, we moved right across the bridge to a small town called Gloucester City. Lived there when I was a 10. Li- when I was a 10, I was a 10 at that. When
You're
I was,
still a 10.
you're too kind. I'll send you the Venmo to say that.
Still.
Um, then we moved to Atlantic City when I was 10. But growing, up until like the age between the age of 10 and 13, I was a severe asthmatic. Um, Spent a lot of time in the hospital, like every spring and every fall. We'd have to go to the emergency room because I couldn't breathe. But then around the age of like 12, when we were living in Atlantic City, we found a really good lung specialist, a guy named Dr. Hugo Altamirano, and he got me on the right path to get me properly diagnosed with my allergies because my asthma was allergy activated.
Right.
So I was allergic to cats, dogs, dust, peanuts, peas, whatever. You name it. I was allergic to it, but they got me on the right medication and got me up to speed. But the whole time I was going through that with my asthma,
Mm.
I had fallen in love with professional wrestling. Um, I was about 8 years old, and we're still living in Gloucester. And one day, my neighbor friend kid named Sean, I go over to his house. I was like, "Hey, you want to come over and watch the Phillies game? Watch some baseball?" He goes, "I can't come over. I'm watching wrestling." I'm like, "What's wrestling?" So I said, "Come over to my house. We'll watch it at my house." He came over. We watched it, and it was love at first sight. First match I remember seeing was Rick Martel and Tony Garea versus Mr. Fuji and Mr. Saito, and that was it. That was my calling. That was my life, and everybody thought that thought I was like, I want to be a professional wrestler, and they're
Yeah.
like, that's cute. You can't go from here to there without getting winded, here and there and that other thing. But thankfully, as I got older, and like I said, we found a lung specialist. My lungs started getting a little bit better, and then I was able to play the other kids' reindeer games as opposed to when I was a child. I really couldn't do anything. But professional wrestling is something I've always wanted to do,
Yeah.
and I'm glad. I'm great. I lost touch with Sean a long time ago, but I wish I could go back in time and to say thank you because without professional wrestling, I don't know where I'd be right now. You
Yeah.
know, it's given me so much joy as a fan, and it's given me incredible opportunities as a young adult making my
Mm.
way through the world.
That's a really special thing. Thank you for sharing that. And
Oh, thank you.
can you tell me who your favorite wrestlers were when you were a kid? Who did you think, wow, I'd love to be like them, or they're the ones that got you tuning in every week?
I was just addicted. It was just, like I said, the first wrestlers I remember seeing was, Rick Martel, Tony Garea, but I loved guys like Tito Santana. Yeah, Tito was classic. And he still is a classic.
Yeah.
He's a great human being, and he's somebody any young aspiring wrestler should attain to be like, because he had the great balance of the wrestling business and family life.
Yeah.
Uh, Tito was great. Bob Backlund was my first champion. Um, well, Ricky Steamboat. But then, when I started wanting to become a wrestler, I got the visions of wanting to be a wrestler. Guys like Bam Bam Bigelow, Terry Gordy, just
Yeah.
agile big guys who can move around the ring. And I knew I was never going to be like a Charles Atlas. I wasn't going to win any bodybuilding contests, but I knew if I can find somebody, hone in on them, and kind of try to be like them, like a Dusty Rhodes, charismatic guy, but he was a big guy, but he could move around.
Yeah, definitely.
No, yeah, I found guys who I could identify with when it came to daydreaming about wanting to be a professional wrestler, and supplied them to myself. And then eventually, when I saw the Great Muda, who's not my body type, but doing the moonsault, I was like, man, if I could ever do a moonsault, that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
And then I saw Bam Bam Bigelow hit a moonsault. I was like, that was like, a Reese cups, the chocolate and the peanut butter coming together. A big guy doing a moonsault. If I could just do that, that'd be awesome. And eventually, that's kind of what led to me getting noticed for ECW, being a big guy who can move around and
Yeah.
do stuff off the ropes that cruiserweights usually do.
And not only a moonsault, but you found a way to make it meaner.
Yeah. The secret to my moonsault was if I knew I was missing it, I would just be like a kamikaze and just, all right, here we go. And just, you know, I would always land safe, but I always put a little bit more oomph into it.
Right.
And if I knew I was going to land it, I was definitely a little bit more safer with it. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was fun. We had a lot of fun to it, especially in ECW where I would go up to the top rope, and you see like Stevie Richards come and try to push me up to the top rope and give me help, and we made it a little bit more colorful. But
Yeah.
yeah, it just became something that I was able to do and became my calling card.
And you got a lot of air when you were doing it as well.
Pretty much, yeah. Like
Yeah.
uh when I got to ECW, they had those rings that had the there's some rings that are like rope, and then there's ring rope. There's ring rope that's rope, and then there's ring rope that's steel cable. But
Mm.
ECW rings had the cables were so tight I could just and no problem. There's the secret to the moonsault. It's all in the hips.
Right.
And once you do that, you get the rotation and it's all good. Like it's like that was it Billy Madison or Happy Gilmore where he's like, it's all in the hips. It's all you just pop your hips and the moonsault goes, and it's it's something to experience too, because if you do it just right,
Yeah.
you can watch yourself come, you can hit the rotation and then watch yourself come all the way down, and it's perfect when you hit the mat and you just bounce up and fall a second time kind of thing. But those are
Right.
just like some of the fun memories of being able to do something like that.
Yeah, definitely. I used to do similar on my bed, but it wasn't quite as impressive.
I broke every piece of furniture as a child trying to be Jimmy Fly Snuka on my teddy bear, and my grandparents hated it. You know, He'd be downstairs, and I'm diving, and like drywall's coming down on them, and stop it. Yeah, I broke couches, box springs, everything. I saw Jimmy Superfly Snuka do the leap off the top of the cage, and I was like, all right, teddy bear, it's your turn.
So is it true you attended WrestleMania 4 and 5?
Yes.
So you got to see the Mega Powers form and also explode.
Yes. And that was another magical moment. You know, um, when I'm old enough to where I go, I remember WrestleMania, when in the early days. The first three, I went with my grandfather to closed circuit. They would show them on a giant screen, like movie theater type screen.
Yeah.
And then after, WrestleMania 3, you're like, oh man, I wonder where it's going to be. And I'm sitting in my bedroom, and they showed the video with the jackpot, the slot machine, and WrestleMania Trump Plaza. I almost jumped through the ceiling. And the cool thing about it being at Trump Plaza is my grandfather worked there, so he was able to get some decent tickets. So like, and also before, now we have like fan access, and now they call it now they call it WWE World.
Yeah.
Back then they had like a small little fan fest just for high rollers. And my grandfather's boss was like, your grandson likes wrestling, right? He's like, yeah. He's like, tell him to come up. Well, I'll get him in. I walked in. And it was just like walking into Willy Wonka's. It was just like, there's Hacksaw Jim Duggan, there's Hillbilly Jim, there's Koku Beware, there's Strike Force, and all the. It was awesome. So I got to go to WrestleMania 4 or 5, but I also got to just go to like the fan fest and just get to meet like all these larger than life characters that I've been watching on TV. I always tell people pro wrestling is a live action comic book,
Yeah.
where you actually get to interact with the characters. It's not like going to Disney World where you see somebody in a suit or an outfit. You get to meet the people who play these characters. And as a kid, I was just like, this is amazing, So I got to go to 4 or 5, and like you said, it was awesome getting to see Randy Savage. Randy was another one of my like people always go, "What's your Mount Rushmore?" And I'm like,
Mm.
I like so many different people, but watching Randy win that world title was awesome, and I loved Randy so much that like I almost kind of turned on Hogan when Hogan, beat the. I was Team Randy when the Mega
Oh,
Powers.
wow.
I was like,
Controversial.
Hogan did have lust in his eyes. I saw it. I saw it. And then when Hogan won the belt, I was like, and Randy had that awesome outfit at WrestleMania 5, the orange. I was like, boo, boo you, Hogan. That's Randy's belt, but the grandeurs of being a childhood wrestling fan.
Absolutely. So I've got a fun fact which I realized last night, which I'm really excited to talk to you about. So
Awesome.
you first went to train with Al Snow, who's been
Yes.
on my show as well. Love him. And you, if I've understood this correctly, your first day of training with Al Snow was the day after WrestleMania 10, right?
I close. I left to go train with Al the day after WrestleMania 10.
I'll take it because
Yes.
the day after WrestleMania 10 was March 21st, 1994, which was yesterday. That was 30 years ago.
Oh my God. That's awesome.
Happy anniversary for that day.
Thank you. I'll take it. And you know what? I'm kicking myself too, because normally I'm pretty good at remembering that, but I'm glad you reminded me. And that was a huge step in my life.
Yeah.
Day after WrestleMania 10, I well 2 weeks prior to that, I was working in a casino. I was working in Trump Plaza where my grandfather worked, and that's where I saw my first WrestleManias in person. And me and my mom worked in another casino, and we're walking down to catch the little shuttle bus that takes you to the casinos. And I stopped. We're waiting for the light to change, or waiting to cross the street. And I had already paid my tuition. I had done everything. I went, Ma, you know what? I'm gonna work tonight. I'm giving my 2 weeks notice. I'm gonna go to Ohio and train. She went, okay. And it was just, and then 2 weeks later we had a little get together, and
Yeah.
I didn't get WrestleMania 10, but like if you put the cable box on a certain channel, you could listen to WrestleMania
Right.
with the scrambled screen. So we listened to WrestleMania. We had a little get together, and the next morning I loaded up everything I owned into my car because I know this is it. And it's like this is my version of going to college. And I got about maybe 40 minutes away from home, and I started getting like, it's like, oh, am I doing the right thing?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of reasons to turn the car around. But luckily, once I got over the bridge from Jersey into Philadelphia, I was like, well, there's no turning back now. And I kept driving. And uh, car trouble aside, my car broke down in like uh, Columbus, Ohio. My windshield wiper flew off in a rainstorm. I was like, are these omens? Are these signs? It's to go back home. But I made my way to Al's gym,
Mm.
and went up the elevator, and I said, "Hi, I'm looking for Al Snow." And Al Snow goes, "Hi, I'm Al Snow. I'm leaving." Well, he had to go pick up parts for the ring,
Right.
and I hung out with the students for that afternoon. And Al came back the next afternoon, that night, and we had a little meeting. He's like, "Hey, I believe in honesty," and he gave me the speech. I always believe in honesty, and you're honest with me, I'll be honest with you, and we had a nice talk. And then the next morning, he got me in the ring and taught me how to take my first real bump because as a amateur backyard wrestler, I took many untrained bumps, but he taught me how to take a proper bump in the ring, and I was like, "Hey, this is it." And I almost quit right then too. But there's so many moments where I was like, "Man, am I doing the right thing?" But thankfully, Al was my trainer because I remember, learning to take a no-hander, walk out of the ring, flip, boom, and I'm hitting my heels and it's jarring my shins, and I roll out of the ring, just don't say a word, there was like a little living quarters. I went and sat in a chair and just stared at the wall. And Al comes in a couple minutes later, sits next to me, goes, "Okay, what's wrong?" I go, frustrated, and then he's like, "It's okay. We've all been there." And Al was the big brother I never had.
Mm.
Just I had a cousin. I had cousins who were like brothers, but he was like the big brother, and the calming voice.
Right.
I don't know, like I think if I was anywhere else, I would have been just, all right, you either want to do it or you don't get out, kind of thing. But Al, he took care of me. And then eventually his family welcomed me in, and his family became my family too.
That's
To
so
where, like,
great.
on the holidays, like Easter, they would, his daughters made me, his daughter and son made me an Easter basket, and because they knew I was, far away from home, homesick kind of thing. And you're still my friends to this day, you know?
That's a really special thing. And can you tell me how long it took you from experiencing that first bump to really learning the ropes and understanding it and being competent enough to take part in a match?
I don't even know if I was really competent when I got to my first match. Uh, but like Al was very thorough. He made sure you didn't go into step B without learning step A. And I started training in March of 94. And I had my first match in Wallaceburg, Ontario, Canada. I want to say in June of
Right.
94. So April, May, June, 3 months. And I mean, that match was nothing I was gonna say it's nothing to write home about, but I did write home about it.
Yeah, absolutely. You
Yeah.
should. It's a big
Yeah.
deal.
I told my grandparents I had my first match. I sent a VHS copy home so my grandfather could see it. It's my grandfather had taken ill while I was away. Um, my first, month and a half there, I get a call from my grandmom saying that my grandfather was sick, and he had cancer. He had worked in a chemical plant for like 27 years and got asbestosis.
Yeah.
And but she said, he said, "Don't come home. This stay there, do what you got to do." And but I made it a point, to go back home. Once a month, I'll road trip home, see the family, take in an ECW show on my way back to back to the school. And but yeah, it was I started training in March, first match in June, and then like Al started having events in the school,
Mm.
and the school was awesome. It was the fifth and I want to say the fifth and sixth floor of this old Masonic temple, and the room where the ring was kind of looked like the Manhattan Center where the first early Raws were, because there's like balconies,
Right.
stage where fans could sit, and there's like two separate entrance ways and stuff like that. And you know, he would have those monthly events, and then eventually Al was having this feud with Sabu, And Sabu started running shows. So Sabu started using Al's students because he wanted to have different people on the shows that other, because everybody in the Michigan area used a lot of the same wrestlers. He wanted some different people. So he was using a lot of Al students. So I got to work for Sabu. Dan Severn started running shows. So I started working for Dan Severn. And then there's a guy in Indianapolis, Indiana, Mike Samples. He was running shows every Thursday. So I was wrestling pretty. It got to a point where I was working like once or twice a month, besides the training, like actual
Right.
shows, to where I was doing some decent amount of shows. And it got to the point where Al said, hey, it's cool you're getting all these, you're working all these shows. I'm getting you these bookings. Maybe it's time to go back home. Go back home and learn how to hustle and go see the world. Learn how to go to different shows, get your book. Like, and I would do that. I followed Al's advice. He said, find out where a show is, show up, leave your bag in the car, but go in and introduce yourself to everybody. Say, hey, I'm Brian. Find a promoter. Hey, I'm Brian. I understand you have a card. I understand you're probably booked, but if something happens, my stuff's in the car. If you need any help with anything, let me know. And plenty of times, I'll promote like Dennis Corluzzo, who used to run the NWA in New Jersey, was like, hey, Bry, so-and-so stuck in traffic. Get your own third. Go get your stuff. You're wrestling. Boink. Okay.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Just you make opportunities,
Yeah.
Nobody's going to book you sit on your couch waiting for him to call. You have to go out and find them and take them, excavate them,
I might, having
some
known
people,
that, I might try and get myself a match at WrestleMania. I'm just going to go, I know you've got a lot of people here, but if someone pulls out, you need someone in the main event, then.
I believe in you.
Yeah,
I'm
thank
sure
you.
I'm sure you can do it. I'm trying to do that myself. It's like it's WrestleMania is literally 10 minutes from my house this year. So, but no, I got plenty of stuff going on. I'll be all right. I'll be
Oh,
all
yeah,
right.
we're going to get to that a little bit later, but yeah, it's going to be a packed week. I've got to save queuing up. I've already got some merchandise behind me, because it sells out pretty quickly.
That is probably my favorite WrestleMania logo with the Liberty Bell on it.
I've got a scarf as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And it's in the colors of my favorite sports team, the Philadelphia Eagles. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'll be getting it when it's on clearance. Typical wrestler. I wait for a good sale. Wrestlers are notoriously cheap, but just I'll wait till it goes on sale.
It's sensible. See, I went to Money in the Bank last year because I was in London, and all the good
Awesome.
stuff sold out within 5 seconds, and it was on eBay 1 second later. And so this time I've preemptively bought stuff instead.
That's good. You'll be showing up styling and profiling.
I think so.
You'll have an amazing hockey is much better in person
Yeah.
as is baseball. I love baseball. Going to a Phillies game, have a hot dog, have a beer, nice day. It's perfect.
Yeah, I just
And
want the whole experience, right?
yeah, that ballpark's amazing too. There's not a you could just walk around, like you could sit in your seats, but then you could just walk around and just take in the atmosphere and nothing like it. It's so much fun.
Yeah, I've been watching these videos by a guy called Philly Captain, and so
He's my
he'll
buddy.
really.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've watched him just walking around the stadium, and he'll sit in the seat, and then the next minute he's off walking somewhere else, and then he's sat somewhere else, and then he finds a better seat at the bar, and yeah.
He's a great guy. Here we are. I could just listen to him talk about anything. He's so knowledgeable about Philadelphia.
Yeah.
You picked the right guy to follow.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I went to New York a couple of years ago, and you'll find top 10 lists on any city of what to do, but I like going a bit deeper than that and just finding like all the random stuff people don't know about and experience as much of the city as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it should be fun. I'm really looking forward to it.
And you're going to the Philadelphia Zoo too, which is awesome.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking, so I've got about 20 or 30 things on a maybe list. And that's
Okay. Here's another cool thing you do. There's the Eastern State Penitentiary.
yes,
And
I've seen people tour around that.
yeah, and if you take the audio tour, they give you the headsets. Steve Buscemi does the audio tour.
Already?
So you can walk up to a placard. It says hit this button on the thing. You hit the button, and Steve Buscemi gives you the history of where you're standing, man.
Oh
It's
wow.
really cool.
Yeah.
Really cool if you're into that. And they filmed a lot of stuff there. Like Turner filmed a music video there. They filmed the movie 12 Monkeys there with Brad Pitt. They filmed the whole WWE filmed a lot of stuff there where you see the guy standing in this thing that looks like a prison and with the
Yeah.
lights. That's Easter State Penitentiary in Philadelphia. So
Interesting.
it's really cool.
Hmm. Yeah,
Really cool.
thanks. That's on another one of my potential things actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's you can spend a good couple hours. Like me and Mrs. Meanie went there and we were leaving there and folks were like, "You're still here?" I was like, "Yeah, I was getting my money's worth, man." Steve Buscemi in my ears and just looking around. And then they have like other tours, like there's like a riot tour, and then there's one where they take you into a synagogue they had in there for mass services, which was really cool, where they show you how they refurbished it and like this is the original door, and it's so much cool history in that
Hmm.
area. It's right smack dab in the middle of a neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. It just you're going down the street and hey, there's a prison. It's pretty cool.
Hmm. I'm thinking also of going to Washington, DC for a day as well.
If you could do that, that'd be amazing. Because it's
Hmm.
all with you just hop on a train and be there in like 90 minutes.
Yeah, but that's the great thing about it.
Yeah, yeah, that's perfect. You don't want to drive to Washington. Traffic's horrible. But
Hmm.
if you could just hop on a train and be there, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Do all the stereotypical stuff, White House, etc. But it's a cool thing to do, right?
Very cool. No, that'd be awesome. That's what I love about Philly. 90 minutes you're in New York. You know, by car 90 minutes you're in Baltimore, or 2 hours you're in Washington, or 45 minutes you could be in Atlantic City.
Yeah.
We're right, a stone's throw from a bunch of cool stuff.
Yeah, it's really exciting. So I'd have some extra time after WrestleMania just to relax and enjoy the city even more
Very cool.
and possibly just sleep.
That's my favorite pastime. Make sure you have some comfortable shoes.
I'm just going to be sat down.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Yeah.
That's my other favorite pastime is sitting down.
I'm an Olympic athlete just at sitting.
Now the gold medalist in the sitting down portion of the show,
Yeah.
Sarah.
Sadly, I didn't make it to the Olympics because I sat down somewhere else, which is how I instantly win.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
So speaking of which, can you tell me how Raven and Stevie Richards initially led you to ECW?
Oh my God. Al had told me to go back home, travel, and learn how to hustle, learn how to get my own bookings. And there was 3 shows that kind of cemented my journey into ECW, because I used to go to ECW shows as a fan, which is awesome. And I go way to learn how to wrestle, and I'm still going to ECW shows as a wrestler slash fan. But then there was a show in Baltimore for MEWF, I believe. And then there was a show in West Virginia for a guy named Tyler Katz. And then a show in Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh area, for my friend Norm Connors, who I'm still friends with to this day. And Stevie and Raven were on those shows. And it was like it's Pittsburgh show. I wasn't booked, but I called up my friend Norm. I was like, look, I understand. Like I said to every parent, look, I know your show's booked, but I liked hanging out with Norm. He was just a young guy like me. We had the same sense of humor. I'm just going to come out and hang out and just watch the shows, just hang out. So my car was in the shop at the time. So I took a 6-hour Greyhound from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh. His roommate picked me up, and went to the first night, and he threw me a bone. He was like, "Hey, you're on tonight." And I was wrestling this guy doing a Batman gimmick, and he was the local veteran wrestler. Like sometimes he was Doink, sometimes he was Batman. He always
Right.
had a great merch table of other people's merchandise. And we had a match that night, and it was my first experience with a veteran that was just like, kid, the more they pay me, the more I'm going to bump, and they're not paying me too well tonight. I was like, oh, great, awesome. So I made him bump a few times.
Yeah.
Just all right, you don't want bump for me? You want me to bump for you, but you don't want okay. This is going to be fun. But the match was but we had some fun, and I go back to the locker room, and Raven was scheduled to wrestle one of my classmates from Al's gym. This guy Ray the Crippler Roberts, who was an interesting character. And if I ever write a book, I could probably do a whole chapter on him. He had to be late 30s, early 40s, had done time in prison, and this interesting character. And I knew Raven was wrestling him. I was like, I gotta watch this. This is going to be good, and they had a great match, great brawl. And Raven comes back. I go, I enjoyed your match. He went, hey kid, nice moonsault. I went, oh, oh, you watched my match. So that night, we're all staying at the promoter's house, Norm Connor's house. Me, Stevie Raven. It's like a couple guys just sitting around drinking beer, listening to music, telling jokes. Next day we go to lunch, and we go to place right around the corner from Norm's house. And he goes, Raven's like, we got this idea for a character. Stevie's my lackey, but we want to have a lackey for a lackey. You know, uh, we have this guy in mind. He's a big guy, but you're a big guy too, and you can wrestle. You do that moonsault. You want to, be Stevie's, lackey. I was like, I'll be an ECW, right? He's like, yeah. He's like, I'm in. All right, cool. So he's like, yeah, but you'll have to wear a half shirt and Daisy Dukes. I was like, but I'll be an ECW, right? He goes, yeah, I'm in. I don't care. Yeah, all right, sure, cool. So we all go back to Philly, um, and I meet up with them, and we start, talking about, being a part of the thing. I start showing up to ECW with Stevie and Raven, just hanging out in the back, being mouth closed, ears open, and we start doing, tag matches together. I was at the time I was Brian Rollins. That's why that was my wrestling. It was something. And we did another show for Norm in Pittsburgh. Oh, I'm sorry. October 95, I debuted for ECW.
Mm,
Stevie was wrestling Johnny Grunge. And that night that was the infamous night of the fire incident with Terry Funky Cactus Jack.
right.
And that footage went bye-bye. So nobody got to see my debut or anything like that. So in the meantime, we go to work for Norm again. And in the meantime, Raven had gotten this idea for the Blue Meanie character. And we're driving home from Norm's show in this blizzard, and we're just, talking wrestling. Raven goes, hey, did you ever see the movie The Yellow Submarine? I was like, yeah. When I was a kid. He's like, do you remember the Blue Meanie character? I was like, vaguely. He's like, all right, you're going to be the Blue Meanie. You're going to love it. You're going to want to paint your whole body blue, but just dye your hair, dye your beard. But you're going to, I was like, I'll be an ECW, right? He's like, yeah. I was like, I don't care. All right, go, go, go. So we go to it. We get back to his house. We wait for Blockbuster Video to open the next day, and we rented the Yellow Submarine and watched the Yellow Submarine. And we just watched the Blue Meanie parts, and then he had me practice, promos and interviews. And November, you know, I debuted in October 95. Then November 95 was the debut of the Blue Meanie in November to Remember 95. And it was very ceremonial, to where I was a fan in the crowd
Yeah.
interacting with Stevie, and Stevie brings me over to guardrail, which is basically, it was like my ceremony of going from being a fan to being a pro wrestler, making it into one of the hottest companies at the time in ECW. So it was very cool to be able to do that. And the debut for ECW in my hometown, Philadelphia. My career, if I told, like you say, I debuted for ECW in
Mm.
Philadelphia. I debuted for WWE in Philadelphia. I had my WrestleMania moment in Philadelphia. People are like, yeah, that's a little corny. You're laying it on thick there, pal. you might want to dial that back, but Philly's been such a huge part of my career.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely. Can you tell me, by the way, speaking about you dyed your hair blue, how much maintenance was that for you? Did you have to dye your hair blonde first and then apply the color?
yeah, it was a trial and error.
Yeah.
In the early days, I would just dump a bottle of Manic Panic into my head and hair dry it up into a mohawk, and then wash my hair. And some would stay, some of it would stay, some of it would not. And then like I would eventually look like after so many washes, or if you go swimming in a pool, you end up looking like a head of lettuce because I would bleach my hair blonde, you know, and eventually, I was using this blonde hair dye. Then you learn how to use powders and toner, and then you're just scorching your scalp to where it looks like the surface of Mars. But you learn how to do it, and eventually, I started getting it professionally done as well too, just because I'm sure I wasn't doing it correct at all. But yeah, it became a process to where I'm fortunate right now that I have a head of hair at all. Just all
Or a
the
head, all the chemicals.
that too. I'm surprised I don't look like the guy from
Beetlejuice?
that and was it Sin City, the guy with the huge orange head or whatever.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
just from constantly burning my scalp. Just or I look like Freddy Krueger. Yeah, just big scorched head. You know. It's like my head is like when I think about how big my head is, like the movie So I Married an Axe Murderer when he's like, head paper now, you just look at the size of his cranium, just but that's me. That's me. That was a process, just bleaching and dyeing and washing and then, doing it all over again. You can watch some of those ECW shows where you're like, yeah, Meanie missed an appointment, he's the light blue Meanie this month.
Right, right. And so while we're talking hair and makeup, your glasses that you had on your face, can you tell me, were they Sharpie? Were they face paints? How did you do that?
Well, I initially when I was first the blue Meanie, I used grease paint like clown makeup.
Yeah, yeah.
And after asking around, I learned that, what the Ultimate Warrior would use, the Road Warriors, Ultimate Warrior, and Sting would use was some called Liquitex,
Right.
like I call it acrylic paint, but the brand is called Liquitex, and that's what everybody used. And I start buying that, and through that, you learn the proper processes of making sure you put it on wet and just let it dry. You know, when as the Blue Meanie, I make a lot of faces like that. So you gotta kind of like put it on while you're doing your Meanie face.
Yeah.
Your face is expanded, so when you relax, it just goes back to normal. So when you go like that again, it doesn't spider web. And there's
Yeah.
it's a product called Liquitex.
Interesting. Yeah, because I remember when I first started watching wrestling and the Ultimate Warrior towards an end of a match, sometimes his face paint would start coming off.
Yeah,
I imagined it would just wipe off, but it was kind of hanging off like it was paint or something. And that makes sense now.
yeah. Liquitex is the best brand. Like if you're a young aspiring pro wrestler who wants to paint your face like Sting or Ultimate Warrior, Liquitex is the best brand to use.
It's
Yeah,
really good advice.
hair and makeup tips by Meanie.
Yeah. This is what this show's all about.
Absolutely
So while you're in ECW, can you tell me what now future Hall of Famer Paul Heyman was like to work with?
amazing. And I was just thinking about this the other day. He was only, well, still is. He's only 8 years older than me. But I felt like I've watched the guy my entire life. And that's just a testament to the time he's put in. He snuck into wrestling as a teenager.
He did.
Yeah, much like Cameron Crowe. If you watch the movie Almost Famous,
Yeah.
about Cameron Crowe's career, he snuck his way into Rolling Stone magazine the way Paul snuck himself in the way to WWE by being a photographer. And then he, starts doing play by play for local shows in Jersey. And then it wasn't until like Bam Bam Bigelow dared him to become a manager in Memphis that, he became a manager, and then he became a booker in Continental Wrestling and Windy City Wrestling. And he went on to, help out. He went to ECW to help his good friend Eddie Gilbert, do promos and stuff like that. And, I was always a fan of Paul because my favorite movie is Johnny Dangerously with Michael Keaton, and he named himself after that. So I was like, oh, if a guy names himself after Johnny Dangerously, Paulie Dangerously, I'm a fan. So, and being a fan of wrestling in the States, wrestling would be on ESPN every afternoon, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And there's Paulie doing promos all day, every day, because he's one of the guys who hasn't quit or left and go to, so he's doing promos every day. Then, he's managing the New Midnight Express, and then he's going off to Crockett. And so when he debuted for ECW, I'm at home as a fan watching ECW in 93, 94, and he comes out, and he gave a lot of credibility to ECW. So I get to go to ECW, and I gotta say it was a little intimidating, Um, it's intimidating because you don't want to do the wrong thing. You don't want to, you could easily, I've seen people just mess up their careers in just one day, but thank God I was trained by Al and, taught, proper etiquette and stuff like that. But like working for Paul was a dream come true in the way that he took his time with you, just like Al took time with me in wrestling school doing promos. If you didn't do it right, he was going to have you do it over and over and over again until you got it right. And there was something magical about sitting like in South Philly. There's this hotel. It used to be called a Travel Lodge, and we all called it the Cylinder of Sin. But on the top floor is where Paul would go up and do promos. You would see like, Steve Austin's My Night NyQuil promo was filmed there. A whole bunch of stuff was, and I would go up there. And I would just sit in the corner, sit in the floor, and just watch everybody do interviews. I would watch Paul produce everybody's interviews. So by the time it became my turn to do a promo, I kind of had an idea where he wanted to do. And if I didn't get it right, I knew he was going to, have me do it over and over again. So if I did something like almost in one take, I'd be like, you sure that's it? And he's like, oh yeah, you're good. I'm like, oh, awesome. But, the cool thing about Paul is you'd be at the sub arena and he would just set up his table right in the middle of the locker room.
Yeah.
There was no special Paul's office, this, that.
Right.
Boom. Here's a table. There's Paul with either a yellow legal pad, or he's pulling pieces of paper out of his pocket. He wrote down ideas on napkins and stuff like that, which is another thing. Raven was good for that. Me and Raven would be driving around. He goes, go in my glove box, get my sticky, those sticky tab. And we would write out matches. Okay. Okay. First part of the match, I write down, plop it on put the sticky tab on the dashboard. You write some out, boom. And then I would have to reassemble it off the dashboard and read it back to him. And meanwhile, he's calling this match, I'm learning as I'm writing it out and reading it back to him and getting ideas for timing. That's how, working for Paul was. That being in a locker room with Paul Heyman and Raven, Scott Levy, you had no choice but to learn. And if you could learn
Yeah.
from them, God bless you. Just so fortunate to be in the locker room with those two. And Paul was a great boss. People bounce checks, like get over it. It happened. That's the price of doing business. You're in any business, the first couple of years you're going to be in the red because you're trying to get the brand out there. And by the time ECW started making money, there were years where they made money, but they're still paying for the prior years. And I'm getting off on a sidetrack there, but Paul gave so many people so many opportunities to make a career. If Paul Heyman hadn't going, oh yeah, we'll give the kid a shot. there- There's probably a good reason. There's probably a good reason I wouldn't be here right now talking to you, because Paul saw something in me, and Paul not only helped me learn, but he forgave a lot of the mistakes I made in ECW as well. Because I made a lot of mistakes that most people are like, "Oh, I would get this guy out of here. He stinks. Get him out." But Paul was like, no, 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 no. Next time, do that. Sir, next time, do this. And, you would do that. And he was very forgiving. And, you know, uh, till my last breath, everything to, I owe everything to Al Snow, Steve Richards, Raven, Paul Heyman, Sabu. Those are the guys who first said, "Yeah, let's give this chance. Let's give this kid an opportunity. Give him a chance."
I just think it's a better way of conducting yourself in the world is to give people chances and opportunities, because anyone that's got anywhere has been given the same, and just helps everyone improve and grow.
It's a good life lesson, because I'll be doing something in everyday life, and something will go haywire. But I've got that mentality now to just, all right, take a step, take a breath, process it all, see what's wrong, and let's figure out what the solution is.
Yeah.
And that was, a lesson. It was a wrestling lesson I learned from working in ECW, but it was a life lesson. It gave me a life lesson to deal with people better.
Yeah.
Am I perfect? No. I have my days where it's just like, I just want to just do my thing, get back home and watch my TV, just don't bother me kind of thing. I have those days. We're all human, but if I'm working with somebody and something goes incredibly haywire, I feel like I have the ability to just, all right, pause, take a breath. What just happened? And what road can we go down? Do we hang a right here, left here, or do we just go straight ahead? And that's a lesson that pro wrestling gave me, but it started with ECW because, something happens, you got to think on the fly and adjust, and just stay cool,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah. I, I've never, maybe, maybe one instance I saw Paul lose his temper with somebody, and that was just, one of those rare super things. But other than that, Paul was always cool as a cucumber, unflappable. He just having, an idea of what to do next. It was a master class, and I was fortunate enough to sit under his learning tree, you know.
Looking back, did you have a favorite match that you're a part of in ECW?
Anytime I got to wrestle with Tracy Smothers was awesome. Um, again, I talk about learning. When I first started wrestling, I was wrestling in Indianapolis, Indiana every Thursday for Mike Samples. He would bring in a Tracy Smothers. He would bring in a Ricky Morton. So when I got to go to ECW and they brought Tracy Smothers in, Tracy's like, "Oh, you're that big guy from Mike Samples." So yeah, so he knew me. So when Stevie had gone off to WCW, and me and Nova were finding our way as a tag team, we wrestled the FBI almost every weekend. And it was the best time of my life because Tracy Smothers is awesome. Little Guido is awesome. He's nuts, but they're both nuts, but I love them. They're nuts in a good way. And then they had Tommy Rich on the outside, former NWA world champion. So you go into a match and they're giving you, just a different style, different pacing of everything. But you're in there as a young kid getting to do cool things with these veterans. So, eh, favorite match, any match with Tracy Smothers, with the FBI. And then later on, we went on to wrestle Dandy Doring and Roadkill every night, which was fun because they were young kids like us, trying to, make a name for themselves. And we got to wrestle each other at November to Remember 98. And then Terry Funk does a run in on our match, but wrestling those guys every night, just having fun. It was just fun.
Yeah.
Fun. Just because when I went to WWE and I got to be around guys like the Hardys and Edge and Christian, we're all the same age. We're all in the same just kids, but, in ECW, Tracy's mother, the FBI, awesome. Danny Doring and Roadkill, awesome. And just very fortunate, just to work with, that quality opponents like that.
For anyone that doesn't know, can you tell us how Goldust led you to be covered in blue cake icing, getting thrown off TV and almost arrested?
Well, well, this was in ECW. I was doing the parodies at the time. Me, Stevie, and Nova were doing parodies. I'm not sure if Nova was with us this time, but uh, Goldust had done a promo completely naked, paint covered head to toe in gold paint, with the Intercontinental Belt covering his goods. And we were in Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania for ECW, and pulls me aside and goes, "Coming up to TV studio Monday, we're going to reenact the naked Goldust promo, but you'll be Bluedust." It's like, all right. So I get back to Philly. I go and buy the Liquitex in blue this time to paint myself up. So I go up to the TV studio. It's me, Raven, Sandman. Uh, I think it doesn't matter. It's me and Raven driving up. Sandman was up there too, but Sandman had little Tyler and Lori, his wife, and so we get up there, and they're like, "All right, Meanie, go get painted up." And I'm there, and I go through my bag, and I don't see the paint. I'm like, "Oh no, forgot the paint. I didn't put it in the bag." Sandman's walking by, and he sees me like this, like, it's like, "Yo, what's wrong?" I go, "I forgot the paint. Don't say anything. I forgot the paint." He goes, "I won't say anything." "Yo, Meanie forgot the paint." I was like, "Come on, Hack. What are you doing?" Like, "Oh no, what are we gonna do?" So we got the idea. Me and Tommy Dreamer got into his car. We drove to a local supermarket. The TV studio was in, you know, ECW production was Ron and Charlie. It was Charlie's parents' house, but on the back deck they had the TV studio. So his parents were awesome, but nice house. And I'm standing there, waiting to do it. So me and Dreamer get into his car, go to the local supermarket. We buy cake icing and blue food dye. So we go back and we're making this concoction, and Tommy's painting me up. I paint my eyes with the regular because I have my regular Liquitex.
Right.
Put on my raccoon eyes, and then Dreamer starts slathering me with with this blue cake icing. So he's like, "Well, you're not getting my car like this." So we walk like 2 or 3 blocks down to this local neighborhood park, and we do a promo. It's Stevie and Raven talking, and Raven had put Stevie on the mission to find the dirtiest woman on the planet. So he's going to introduce Bluedust as the dirtiest, filthiest person, whatever. And they do the promo to come over to me and send it to Bluedust. So there's this park where there's a swing set, there's a sliding board, and there's a little bridge in between. So I lay there naked with my little Blue Meanie doll, which I still have somewhere around here, and covering my goods. And then I'm laying there, and then we do the promo, and we did like 2 takes, but then like on the third take, you know, Raven, there was kind of like a mix up in there in the promo, but I didn't lose my cool. I just kind of just went into the, and Paul came over and to me, he's like, Very good. Even though, the line was flubbed, you didn't lose it. You kept cool. You did the take and boom. 2 seconds after that, spotlight, little cop car goes whoop, whoop, with the, we're like, oh no. So like an idiot, instead of just covering up, I'm trying to find my shorts and and this cop comes over and goes, I don't know what you guys are doing. Please stop. I I, I don't want to do the paperwork on this. And it looked like a bizarre porn set. It just a 300-pound guy covered in blue cake icing with a film crew. Sandman, Raven, Stevie. Stevie's got like these dusters in his hand. There's Lori. There's Tyler. And it just looked bad. And we're like, yes, sir. Yep, no problem, officer. And Sandman goes, can we do one more take? It was like, no, no, Salmon, stop. Dip, you know. And and that week led to us, I think that and the night Kimono One Leia and Beal McKillicuddy kissed were the two times we got kicked off TV in New York.
Wow.
So if I can add something cool to my resume, I did something that got ECW of all things kicked off TV for a week in New York City.
Being covered in blue cake icing.
Yes, and it was summer and there was gnats.
Oh wow.
So I looked like the catcher for the dart team by the time it was done, you know.
They thought someone had put a nice cake outside for them.
Usually people jump out of the cake. They don't dress as a cake.
Right.
You know, but such as life.
It's just a different way of doing it. It's harder to jump out of.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. I am the cake.
Surprise.
That's going to be my autobiography. I am the cake. The Brian Heffron story.
I'll wait to read that.
I'll get the audiobook version.
Yeah.
That's what I do. I can read. I just don't have the patience.
I think I know what the front cover is going to be now.
Yes. And hopefully it doesn't get pulled from the shelves.
It'll be fine. There's a show in the UK called The Great British Bake Off. You could maybe go on that as well with the idea.
Be a good excuse to come back over to England. I love it over there. So
You should come visit.
absolutely. Me and my wife love England. We were over there for the Taylor Hawkins tribute concert.
Right.
And, I think I walked through 2 pairs of shoes just going through all the parks and walking over to Camden Town. And, my Fitbit was just like, all right, enough. You've walked enough. Love it there. Love it so much.
See, I'm more gravitationally pulled towards America and keep going back there anytime I get a chance to.
It's kind of like that thing where, wrestlers want to be comedians, rock stars, actors. Rock stars, comedians, actors want to be professional wrestlers. Kind of that thing. People in the United States long to be in England. People in England long to be in the United States. I was listening to an interview with Bernie Taupin, where he said he moved to the States in like the 60s and never went back to England. He's like, I just felt this longing to be in the United States.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. And anytime I go to England, I feel like I've never have enough time when I'm there. By the time I get settled in and used to everything, it's time to leave. It's like, oh man. And I love wrestling video games too. And growing up, played a little bit of everything from tag team wrestling to Super Fire Pro to No Mercy and WrestleMania 2000. And now I'm involved with a game that's coming out soon called Ultra Pro Wrestling, which is going to be the spiritual successor to the No Mercy game and WrestleMania 2000. And
yeah, I've seen it. It looks really great.
Amazing. Sam and Hal Haney's an amazing artist. He's doing all the artwork for it. And they just announced yesterday Davey Boy Smith's going to be a downloadable character. So
oh, wow.
I'm trying not to spoil anything. Like I'm trying not to spoil anything else because I know a lot of stuff about the game that hasn't been announced yet. But if you like No Mercy, if you like WrestleMania 2000, WCW Revenge,
yeah,
going to be like that, but way more modern, you know.
There was a game called WrestleFest, which I used to play when I was a
Yes.
kid. And so now I have, there's a company in the UK which makes arcade machines. And so I have right next to me actually an arcade machine that has WrestleFest.
WrestleFest, I played that a million times in the arcade as a kid.
Yeah.
And then recently I was just, you have that next to you. I have a arcade machine for a game we did, WrestleMania Wrestling, which was this spiritual success for to WrestleFest. Like
Yeah.
it was an inspiration for WrestleFest inspired WrestleMania Wrestling. So I too have something really cool. And that's cool that like, you know, being a wrestling fan and growing up and just going through the evolution of video games, and just getting to even though I tried the 2K games, I can't get those down yet, but give me a good old button masher. I'll be happy.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. And
Get what
yeah,
I call Nintendo thumb.
right. Yeah. I've had that problem. So Blue World Order and just parodies in general, of course, of the New World Order. How do wrestlers typically react to those sort of things? Is it the kind of thing where if it's respectful but it's fun, they're cool with it?
Yeah, it's just we were doing it like when you start doing the parodies, you're just doing them and you don't know quite yet how the person you're parodying is taking it. I did Bluedust in the ECW, and it wasn't until I ran into Goldust. Like, there's a period where WWE was allowing their talent to do independent shows. I went to an independent show in Delaware, and Goldust was on the show, and went up. I was, hey man, I hope you don't mind the Bluedust parody. He's like, no man, that's that's fine. And then later on, I got to meet the NWO guys. At first I met X-Pac. I was like, hey man, I hope you guys don't mind the BWO parody. He's like, no, no, we loved it, man. And then, Scott Hall would tell me stories of how they would go to, after a WCW show, they would go out to a local bar and tell them to put wrestling on, and ECW would be on. And Scott Hall said, well, Scott Hall would rib Kevin Nash. This is what Scott said. He's like, Kevin said, well, it's the Blue World Order and he's me, so I should be the leader of that New World Order, so this stuff like that, and then eventually I've met Hogan as a wrestler once, but like he had some kind things to say about it as well. So to do something where you're paying respect just because it's the biggest thing, you're doing the biggest and best things that's going on in wrestling or in the world, like when we did the parody of Kiss. But to do, parodies of Bluedust, parodies of the New World Order, and then for them to be cool with it, that's the ultimate review.
Yeah,
Fans,
definitely.
you want the fans to enjoy it as well, but the people you're doing parody of, you want them to realize it's done with respect. Kind of like, we were like the Weird Al Yankovic of professional wrestling,
Yeah, yeah.
Weird Al did a couple Michael Jackson songs, and Michael Jackson gave him access to the sets that he did the originals on.
He
So
did, yeah.
that was pretty cool, to interact with those guys and get their feedback on something you did, and not knowing at the time how they're going to take it, and realize when they they appreciated it, made me appreciate it even more.
Definitely. And I guess if there was a modern day equivalent to that in WWE, for example, it would be the bloodline. So you could do the Blued line.
The blue line, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, I gotta think of a way to call myself the head of the table, though. I don't know how that would work,
The
but
Blueso brothers.
yeah, that would be pretty cool. That would be, and they're so amazing. That's probably one of the best storylines going on in wrestling
Oh,
in,
yeah, definitely.
in a long time. And it's ironic that WrestleMania is in Philly, and then Cody Roman's kind of like Rocky too.
Mm.
Rocky didn't win in the first match in the first movie, so now they're coming to Philly, and there's rumors Stallone's going to be there,
Oh, yeah.
and Rocky 2, where he actually goes and wins the belt. So, and people got mad about it, but him losing that last year was the right decision because he's just coming back from an injury and just winning the Royal Rumble. For somebody to win, for Cody to win the belt, finish the story, he needs that adversity.
Yeah,
One of my favorite movies is Vanilla Sky
right.
with Tom Cruise, and one of the characters in the movie is like, you can't appreciate the sweet without the sour. And Cody's had some sour moments, some adversity, and it would be just that much more sweeter if he wins it this time around, knowing everything he had to go to get to that point.
Exactly. And the exciting thing is that if you're right, and this is Rocky 2, then next year at WrestleMania 41, you know he's going to be facing Mr. T.
And thank God he already, and by the time he'll be finishing his Hall of Fame speech about his mother at the,
Yeah.
and then they'll have King come out and, cut him off again.
Actually, thinking about it, Rocky 3 means he also has to face Hulk Hogan or Thunderlips.
That works for me, brother.
Yeah.
Hey, why not? Why not? Where is
like WrestleMania? So we've got Hulk Hogan night 1, Mr. T night 2.
It works.
Yeah.
It works.
Then the following year, the first ever WrestleMania in Russia.
Eventually. That's inevitable, right? They have to have a WrestleMania overseas. Good luck with that paperwork. Yeah. Good luck on that paperwork. But yeah, that would be interesting. You definitely know they got to have a WrestleMania overseas in
I'm
another
really
country.
hoping they do it in the UK because they've started doing bigger events. 2 years ago now, they did Clash at the Castle in Wales, which I went to, and then last year they did Money in the Bank.
What I love about pay-per-view events in the UK is I get to watch wrestling at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I got the rest of my day to have fun. Where you usually watch pay-per-view and it's like I'm ready for a nap. And I love the passion of the UK crowds and stuff like that. Funny story about Clash of the Castle. Me and Mrs. Meanie were going over to London for the Taylor Hawkins tribute concert, and we're in the airport, and out of nowhere, Edge walks by.
Oh, really?
I'm like, what? I run up and somebody's talking to him, and I tap him on the shoulder, turn around, hey, what's up? And I know he's a huge Foo Fighters fan. So I'm thinking he's going to England for the Taylor Hawkins tribute. I was like, hey man, where's your seats? He's like, oh no, I'm not going. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to the Taylor show. Where and I didn't realize he was going to Clash of the Castle at the time. So it's like, hey man, I didn't mean to rub it in that I was going and you're not, but I think you're gonna have a good time in at Clash of the Castles. I recently did one of those DNA things, ancestry.com
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
And I'm part Irish, part Scottish, and I have lineage in Wales.
Right.
So I eventually need to go there. I think I eventually need to go there just to.
We should go visit.
Yes, absolutely. Mrs. Meanie says, like, we gotta do something for your 50th.
Mm.
She loves to plan it. I just here you deal with it. And we went to Ireland. We took a rural pub tour, which was awesome. And we also did a Game of Thrones tour, which was a good excuse to take a bus up to Northern Ireland and go through the forest and have a good time. It was probably one of my favorite trips,
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, now I just need to go to Scotland.
Yeah, Scotland's nice. I've been there a few times.
I drove there to go to the airport and I didn't really get to see anything, but I needed a proper visit to Scotland.
I've only been there a few times doing work stuff, but I've not had a proper vacation there myself yet.
Well, that's the thing about pro wrestling. People are like, oh, you get to see the world. You're like, I saw the airport, I saw the hotel, I saw the arena.
Right.
So I'm at that point in my life where, if there's a cool booking somewhere, I do it to where I could bring Mrs. Meanie with me, and then we'll just stay or like if there's something I could drive to, like I'll drive somewhere, if it's like we'll do a convention in Chicago or Indiana, and along the way we find cool little things to stop at along the way and look at and just enjoy travel instead of just being stuck in the air, stuck in a germ tube for 2 hours with a bunch of strangers, and at least we get to listen to our favorite music or podcasts or audiobooks along the way and have some fun.
It's nice when you're somewhere new, just enjoying the environment. I remember when I went to New York the last time I was in an Uber or something, I enjoyed looking at the signs and the buildings and just everything and soaking in the environment.
Yeah. And the cool thing about going to England is I find I saw a lot of similarities between, towns like Manchester to where I live in South Philly.
Yeah.
Just there's it's kind of like home. Just it's pretty cool to make those realizations.
Yeah, it's fun, isn't it?
Absolutely. I love it. I love traveling. It's always what I wanted to do. And I was always jealous of the kids in school who got to travel and see the
Yeah.
world. And I was kind of a brat about it. But then I got to do it on my own, and I got a great appreciation for, getting to see different parts of the world, and just different cultures and
Yeah.
absorb it all in.
Yeah. I think everyone should if they get the chance to. I think it's just an important thing to do as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing when you get to see the world and then like come home and you're talking to somebody who's never left their block and
Yeah.
they're telling you how the world is. I was like, brother, it's not like that at all. But these are, life's, you know, life's gifts, just to be able to go and experience the world.
Looking back on it, can you tell me your thoughts on the ECW One Night Stand pay-per-view?
Yeah, ECW One Night Stand was a love letter to ECW fans.
Yeah.
Um, because ECW, I mean, ECW felt like it was, from it, if you're just a fan, you're like, ECW is doing fine. ECW is doing great. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it's done. It's been ripped away. It's just like losing an appendage, where's my arm?
Yeah.
You know, people there were wrestling fans who lived and died by going to ECW. I was just at the arena yesterday talking to somebody about the arena, and I was like, people would show up at 9 in the morning and camp out outside the ECW arena to get in line just to get general admission, and they would be tailgating and drinking all day and go and watch these. But like that was people's lives for 8 years, 9 years, and it was suddenly just gone. So, years go by and you start hearing rumors of a reunion show. You're like, oh man, that's awesome. And I was like, oh, I hope they call me. And they called me like 2 weeks before the show, and then Dreamer was like, yeah, we didn't have a number on you. So I was like, oh, okay, that's it. But it was an amazing. I thought it was a really nice love letter to the fans of ECW who had it taken away so abruptly.
Mm.
And you know, and just the way they touched every era of ECW. They brought out every member of the FBI. Then they had dream matches, Sabu versus Rey Mysterio. Which and just I'm trying not to mix up because there's two of them. I'm trying not to mix up the matches, but Lance Storm, Chris Jericho. It's so many cool things, and then my issue aside, it was still a great night. It
Yeah.
was just to sit there and or stand there in a gorilla position and watch or listen to Sandman's entrance and just the electricity that happened in that building that night. It was amazing to the point where I went back to WWE after that and traveling back and forth from Philly. Some of the production guys for WWE lived in the Philadelphia area. So we are both flying to Philly and we're sitting there waiting for our flight. And one of the cameramen was like, I've been filming WWE for all these years, but I've never really been in that environment. He said, I'm recording, but like I'm taking my eye out of the eyepiece and looking around and just, he's like, I've never been in that thing where it feels like the fans are right on you.
Yeah.
And the way that whole thing was set up, I always compare it to the AC/DC video for Thunderstruck, where it looks like they're in Brixton or whatever, and the crowd's just like right on top of you, rocking out. It was just a special night, you
Yeah,
know.
it's amazing.
It was fun, you know, just I mean, sitting there in the gorilla position and watching Vince McMahon, watch Masato Tanaka and Mike Awesome beat the crap out of each other was fun as well. You know, they're doing what they're doing in the ring, and I'm like side-eyeing Vince, and he's at the monitor going, "Oh, oh, oh my God!" You know, it's welcome to ECW, Vince.
Here's a question I ask every guest on the Sarah O'Connell show. Can you tell me a fun fact about you, something we may not know, a hobby, a party trick, something like that?
Fun fact:
Hmm.
I'm a big fan of useless knowledge. That's one of my other things. I love useless knowledge, you know, bar trivia. But I went to school for graphic arts in high school. Um, reading newsletters and stuff like that. I remember reading an interview by Ted DiBiase. He's like, always have a plan B. You know, if you're getting wrestling, things might not work out. Have a plan B, have a backup plan. So my backup plan was go. I went to vocational school and I was going to go for being an electrician. There was way too much math. I was like, I don't know what any of this stuff is. And then my friend was down the hall. He's like, yeah, I'm in graphic arts. We're having a good time. So I transferred over to graphic arts and I was doing everything from running a dark room to printing press to design, you know, on a computer. And I've taken everything I learned in graphic arts. Some of it became obsolete, you know, like there's the printing presses I was using and dark rooms. You could do all that on a computer now, but everything I learned how to do in design, I've taken into wrestling where you go to my pro wrestling tee shop. Some of the shirts I've designed, you know, shows I've ran, I've designed the flyers, I've done the programs and stuff like that. So I have a secondary skill to where, you know, if you need me to design a t-shirt, I help you design a flyer or a piece of artwork, I can hop on the computer and bang out a pretty good, a decent design, a design that's decent by 1990s standards, you know, or early 2000s, you know. I see guys doing, you know, people, I see flyers now, they look like movie posters. I'm like, I don't know how they do that. But, you know, maybe if I went and took a refresher course, I could probably learn how to do that. But, you know, my secondary skill is, you know, design. And I can't draw.
Right.
Like you give me Photoshop, I can do something pretty. I couldn't draw a straight line if you gave me a ruler, you know. But I could design you something pretty decent on a computer.
Can you tell me, by the way, what would be your ultimate dream match? Any opponent, past or present, any organization, any stipulations, what would it be?
I would have loved to have wrestled Bobby Eaton. Uh, Bobby Eaton was another one of those. You know, that's why I say it's hard to nail down one favorite wrestler. Beautiful Bobby Eaton, Midnight Express. I would have loved to have wrestled him and then have Bobby Heenan manage him or Bobby Heenan. I would have loved to have been managed by Bobby Heenan, you know, Bobby the Brain Heenan. I could watch, I could go on YouTube and look up like Bobby Heenan stuff, you know, him and Gorilla Monsoon or him doing commentary or him just managing somebody, you know. If I could be on a show where I got to do a show with Bobby Heenan, but the footage, not with him, he was on the show I was on.
Right.
And I got to have a really cool, you know, moment with him in the locker room. And unfortunately, the footage of that show is in purgatory right now. But I would have loved to have wrestled beautiful Bobby Eaton just because he was just you hear I used to wrestle Tracy Smothers all the time. He would tell you Bobby Eaton stories. He's like, yeah, you'd be in the headlock and Bobby Eaton would start to tell a joke and shoot you into the ropes. And as he's arm dragging you, he's telling you another part of the joke. And by the time you get to the finish, he's finished the joke, you know, like two guys walk into a bar, you know, and just I want to experience that. And
Yeah.
I loved Bobby Eaton so much. I grew out a mullet in high school that I called the Bobby Eaton special that I think only I got the reference to, but beautiful Bobby Eaton, one of the best that more people should watch and study.
Absolutely. Yeah, that would have been an amazing match. Coming up very soon is WrestleMania 40 in Philadelphia. And it seems like that in addition to the WWE, the entire wrestling world and fans are descending upon Philadelphia. There's going to be events, signings, every sort of thing you can imagine, appearances at restaurants all over the place. I know you're doing a ton of stuff too. You're going to be at McCuskers Tavern. MeanieMania is running wild. Can you tell us about that? Where else you'll be? I think you're at WrestleCon as well.
Yes. WrestleMania week's going to be dizzying in South Philadelphia, and thank God I live here, so I can just go and sleep in my own bed. But Thursday, April 4th, between 7 p.m. and 2 a.m., MeanieMania will be at my favorite bar on the planet, McCuskers Tavern, on the corners of 17th and Shunk in South Philadelphia. That's 2601 South 17th Street. It's just going to be a cool hang. There's plenty of events going on same time as mine, but if you're going to an event or you're leaving an event, come to McCuskers. No cover charge, 21 and over to attend. We'll have drinks, we'll have some food, we'll have wrestling on the screens, we'll have music, playing, wrestling themes playing, but most importantly, we'll have wrestling fans from all over. They can get together, have a couple drinks together, and talk about and make new friendships. Make plans. And hopefully, get together and do what we all like to do and talk about our love of professional wrestling. I've been going to McCuskers over 20 years, and once we heard WrestleMania was coming I was like, man, we should do something. And Dougie McCusker, it was like, you'd be crazy not to. So we started doing the plans for MeanieMania. Along with MeanieMania, I'll be at WrestleCon all 3 days.
Friday to Sunday.
Yeah, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Friday night, Friday afternoon, there'll be a block party at the 2300 Arena from Battleground Championship Wrestling is going to have a show in the afternoon. Then they're having what they call a block party, which is a meet and greet. And then that night, they're going to do a tribute to Extreme Battleground Championship Wrestling's Tribute to Extreme Part 2 at the 2300 Arena, which they've asked me to host, which is going to be awesome. It's going to be a lot of fun. Uh, right now I'm tentatively planning to do some private tours of the 2300 Arena, which we're working on those details, and they're going to be announcing them soon. So, but like I'm literally doing something every day of the week, and it's going to be so much fun. What's interesting about WrestleMania coming to town, I'm seeing advertisement for shows and buildings I've never heard of. Like there's going to be a show in a church, for old church, and I'm like, wow, I've never heard of that venue, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be wrestling's version of Woodstock, basically here in Philadelphia. But if you're coming to town, if you're getting to town on a Wednesday, Thursday, looking for something social to do, and you want to come out and have fun, come to MeanieMania, McCuskers, 17th and Shunk, 2601 South 17th Street, I say between 7 and 2, but I'll probably be there a little bit earlier and a little bit later than that too as well. So
it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun, and I highly recommend anybody in the area or outside the area makes that trip.
yeah, it's going to be fun. And it's a great place to go to all weekend too. It's 8 minutes from Lincoln Financial Field where WrestleMania is. And Wells Fargo Center. That's what's cool is, Wells Fargo Center, Lincoln Financial Field, and Citizens Bank Park are in one area. McCuskers is 8 minutes from there. So if you're looking to party, post party, whatever you're looking to do, McCuskers is a great little dive bar here in South Philadelphia.
As you say, you're going to be there till 2 a.m. as well. So even if you're going to another show, you can still go there afterwards.
Yeah, I know people are like, oh well, I'm going to Wale Mania, but I'll come over after, I'll come to MeanieMania after that. Or I know people are coming to MeanieMania before they go to an event. There's an event at the arena. There's Wale Mania. I think Undertaker just announced a one-man show.
Yep.
So whatever you're doing, we'll be there, and we'll be ready to welcoming you in to my favorite bar on the planet and have a couple cocktails.
One of the first things I need to do when I get to Philadelphia is obviously run up the Rocky Steps, but it's occurred to me I'm going to have to do that several more times because I can't determine where the best Philly cheesesteak is. Obviously, the tourist spots are Pat's and Gino's and Ishkabibbles as well, and lots of other places. Where's the definitive place I need to be going to get a Philly cheesesteak?
Oh my God. Like I tell everybody, you could throw a stone anywhere in Philadelphia and get a good cheesesteak. Pat's and Geno's are good. Pat's is the corner of the original cheesesteak. There was a guy who had a shop there, and one day he had leftover steak, and he just sliced it up and put it on a hot dog roll and sold it as a cheesesteak sandwich. And the next day, guy goes, "Hey, get any more of those cheesesteak sandwiches?" And basically, that was the birth of the cheesesteak here in Philly, and that's where Pat's is. Pat's is good. There's a place on Ninth Street called Angelo's in South Philly. I recently just had one of their cheesesteaks, and it was probably one of the best cheesesteaks I ever had. Angelo's in South Philly. What's great about them is they make their own bread on site. They make pizza too.
Yeah.
Uh, a place is good when they don't deliver. So
They don't need to, right?
yeah, yeah. You want our food? Come to me. You want my food? Yeah. Angelo's is good. If you're down by the state, Oregon Steaks is good. They're 24 hours. They deliver. So if you're at the hotel, they can probably deliver it to you. Uh, Avenue Steaks is a new place that's pretty good. There's Phillips on Passyunk Avenue. Uh, I know that. Here's a little secret. If you're in South Philly, and everybody talks about the cheesesteak, another good staple of Philadelphia sandwiches is the roast pork sandwich. So and it's right near the 2300 Arena, John's
Mm.
Roast Pork,
Okay.
one of the best cheesesteaks you'll ever have. And if you're there, here's what you do. You and your friends go get a cheesesteak, get a roast pork sandwich, slice them in half, each take a half, and you can have a cheesesteak and a roast pork is probably one of the most underrated sandwiches in South Philly. You go, and the proper way to order it is along with the cheesesteak. I'll get a roast pork sandwich, sharp provolone, broccoli rabe, and that's it. It's one of the best sandwiches you'll ever have. My cheesesteak, I get a cheesesteak with fried onions, sharp provolone. I mean, and you can get broccoli rabe too. Broccoli rabe's like a bitter leafy green, but it's so good
All
on the
right.
sandwiches. But yeah, that's a good order for a cheesesteak. Fried onions and the provolone. If you can't handle the sharp, get the mild. But that's how I am.
I think I'm just gonna try all of them. It's the best thing to do.
A little bit of each. A
Yeah.
little bit of each. Yeah.
I'll spend one day doing it. I'll just get like 15 of them.
Yeah. And then if you have room left, the Philly soft pretzel. We're known for our soft pretzels as well, which we're getting a box of them from MeanieMania. Just I want to try have some Philly style food. I
Yeah.
mean, have some pretzels, hopefully some tomato pies, which is just basically a pizza with just the tomato sauce, which is
Mm.
awesome. So yeah, tomato pie, Philly soft pretzel when you're in South Philly or in Philly in general, or a roast pork or a cheesesteak, and you can't go wrong. That's proper Philadelphia. And get yourself a tasty cake or something, tasty pie. That's
Yeah.
our local pastries.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
That's why I look like the Blue Meanie. Just the history of this town with professional wrestling, and then uh, it's been Philadelphia's been overlooked for far too long for a
Yeah.
WrestleMania return. So that crowd is going to be on fire. They're Philadelphia's ready. I don't know if WrestleMania is ready for Philly, but Philly's ready for WrestleMania.
Yeah. I've seen they've started putting up the street signs already.
Yeah,
It's starting to happen.
yeah. Hopefully it doesn't get too crazy because when our sports teams do really well, they grease the poles so people don't climb them.
Interesting.
Yeah, like when the Eagles went to the Super Bowl or when the Philadelphia Phillies went to the World Series, the championship games to go to the big games.
Yeah.
Our fans were known for climbing the poles and street signs. So like the day of the big game, the city sends people out to grease them up. So when people try to climb them, they slide back. But somehow they still manage to make it up there.
That's so funny. If
So
anything, that just makes them better at climbing poles because if they can do it when it's greased up, then they're experts. They can climb anything.
somebody might want to hire them for some kind of like secret military job, some kind of
Yeah.
spy job. Hey,
Mhm.
I've climbed a greased pole in Philadelphia. You're hired.
I must instantly do a quick shout out for your podcast. As I messaged you the other day, I was still up listening to it at 5 a.m. Hundreds of episodes now. It's been running since 2020. A lot of fun you talking about your career and everything going on in the world of wrestling and beyond. Highly recommend it.
Oh, thank you so much. Mind of the Meanie has been a passion project. It's people have always said, Blue Meanie, you got to do a podcast. But I was like, what do I do? I like to talk about everything. I don't want to talk about just wrestling. I could talk about music. I could talk about music, movie, sports, wrestling, So that's our motto. Mind of the Meanie. We talk about music, movie, sports, and tons of useless knowledge, which Mind of the Meanie drops every Monday morning, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Uh, and me and Adam Bernard, my co-host, my tour guide into the Mind of the Meanie, talk about a little bit of everything. It's a good companion piece to whether you're, driving to work or taking the train, taking the bus, need somebody to listen to, no matter what you're doing. We try to be those two other guys on your journey about your day. And, it's been fun. We're up
Yeah.
to episode 208 right now. We just had our sorry, first day with the new math. We just had our 200th episode going on 208, and the time's flown by so quick, and we're having so much fun. And the fact that, I enjoy your show and you say you listen to mine, that's just a cherry on top. That's really cool that, you're willing to show my podcast some love as well.
Yeah, of course. I've listened to billions of hours of you talking. I'm like, hang on, I want to get in on that. I need to get you on my show.
Yeah. Hey, and this is a big thrill for me because you've interviewed literally everybody, and you've had some great interviews and some great subjects to interview. So for when you sent me the invite, I was like, this is going to be fun. This is going to be awesome.
I spend a lot of time working on my interviews and I watch people's entire career. So it has to be people that I love and I've always enjoyed, the content that they're putting out into the world. And yeah, so I've been really excited to have you on my show today to celebrate it.
Oh, thank you so much. It means a lot, and it's going to be awesome that you're coming to my town. Hopefully, our paths cross.
I'll make sure that they do.
Yeah, just to say hello, even if it's for a minute or an hour. Just enjoy your time in my city, and if I can be of any point of reference to help you along the way, navigate the landmines of Philadelphia. Not landmines, but
Yeah.
just guide you. I take great pride. I have pride in my city. I have pride in Philadelphia. Unapologetic. I'm unapologetically a homer when it comes to Philadelphia. So for everybody coming to my town, uh, I hope you and everybody has a special time here in Philadelphia.
Thanks so much. Now, here's a really important question that you probably ask all the time, but would you rather star in an Avatar movie, a Smurfs movie, or be part of the Blue Man Group?
Ooh. Hmm. I would probably have to say the Smurfs.
Good
Just
choice.
just by proxy, because all my life people have like walked by me and whistled the Smurfs theme. Uh, though the Blue Man Group are awesome, you know, the, they are awesome. They talk about kayfabe. They never break character. But
Amazing.
I would have to say Smurfs because
That's
they're kind of like wrestling. They have their own language,
it's true.
much like pro wrestlers. We have our own dialogue. We have our own kayfabe. Smurf. I'm totally feeling smurfed over here. I think I just smurfed my pants. Yeah, so I would definitely have to be a Smurf.
It's a good choice.
Meanie Smurf.
Can you tell me anything else you're working on this year? Obviously, WrestleMania is coming up and all that good stuff, but later on in the year, have you got any plans anywhere we can see you or anything like that?
Right now, besides MeanieMania, which drops every Monday morning, I'm a part of the Ultra Pro Wrestling video game. Go to ultraprowrestling.com or follow them on Twitter. I still call it Twitter
I
at
will
you.
forever.
Yeah, yeah. I can't. I just sent you an X. What? No, I just sent you a tweet. Follow them on Twitter at UPW game. Just search search Ultra Pro Wrestling on Twitter or all forms of social media. That game's going to be amazing. Uh, just countless amounts of they're going to have like their own base of original characters that
Yeah.
Hal has made up with them, but then they're going to have downloadable characters like myself, Arn Anderson, Matt Cardona, a bunch of wrestlers that have signed on to do it. It's going to be amazing. So yeah, look up Ultra Pro Wrestling, download Mind of the Meanie. I'm going to be doing a bunch of I try to do more signings than anything, but if you want to keep up on what I'm doing, follow me on all forms of social media at Blue Meanie BWO, at Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Blue Meanie BWO. That's the best way to see what I'm what I have going on in the mind of the meanie, the world of the meanie.
And I highly recommend that everybody does. So, final question. Have you got any messages for people watching the Sarah O'Connell show and your fans around the world?
Uh, my main message is saying thank you for being a fan. Thank you for being a friend. Uh, this has been a quite a journey. I started my career in '94. Going on my path, as you've just reminded me. It's the anniversary was yesterday, and I'm kind of kicking myself for not remembering that. But just the journey I've gone on along the way has been amazing. There's been ups and downs, but ultimately, I'm grateful for the fans, and I'm grateful for. I like to call my fans my friends because I am too still a fan of professional wrestling. I'm still watching. I'm still, you know, sometimes I take my pro wrestler hat off and put my wrestling fan hat on because at the core of it, I'm still a wrestling fan. So, and that's what I'm looking forward to, Mania coming to Philly, just this convergence of wrestling fans and like-minded people who could get together and watch. But my message is thank you to everybody who's, you know, uh, made an impact on my life, whether it's, you know, uh, Al Snow, Paul Heyman, Raven, Stevie Richards, Sabu, Tracy Smothers, all these people who made positive impacts in my life. And thank you for having me on the show. Anybody who's thought I was worth the investment of time to, you could have interviewed anybody today. You choose to interview me. And, when people make these video games or action figures and they think I'm worth the investment, that means a lot because that means I did something right. And you always reflect on your career and you go, man, did I do the right thing here? Did it, hopefully I leave a good impression, and, the fact that I'm still here after all these years, still doing interviews, still doing video games, doing shows, being trusted with people's time means a lot.
Well, it's been a delight celebrating your career and all the other amazing stuff you've worked on and the things you've got coming up to you, Blue Meanie. Thank you so much for coming on the Sarah O'Connell show.
Thank you. And you are awesome. I appreciate you. And thank you for the time.
You're very welcome. And thank you to everybody watching at home. Be sure to share, subscribe, give this video a big thumbs up, and leave lots of lovely comments. I'll see you all again soon for another episode of the Sarah O'Connell show. Bye.
Hey, this is the Blue Meanie. Please subscribe to the Sarah O'Connor show and subscribe, hit that little bell so you get notifications of when great interviews come up. Several interviews I've enjoyed partaking in and watching, but it's all right here on Sarah O'Connor show. Please subscribe.